You ever get that feeling like the truth's standing right in front of you, but it won't speak unless you make eye contact? That was me, staring at a half-zipped suitcase on our bed with a bright red lace bikini sitting right on top. Like it had been placed there on purpose. Like it wanted to be found. My name is Tyler. I'm 38, live in Denver, and run a custom motorcycle shop out in Aurora. I've been married to Rena for 5 years. And I'm not a jealous guy, at least I didn't think I was. But when I saw that bikini, something in me shifted. Rena was in the bathroom, curling her hair, humming like she hadn't just dropped a loaded gun in my lap. "What's this for?" I asked, holding the bikini up. She glanced at me in the mirror like I'd asked about her favorite cereal. "It's a spa resort, babe. They've got a pool." "Aha. A red lace thong bikini, though?" I tilted my head. She gave a little shrug. "It's just cute. I thought it'd be fun. I haven't worn it in years, right?" Except she'd bought that thing less than 2 months ago. I remember because I saw the charge on our joint card, and she'd said it was a gift for a friend's bachelorette. I didn't press. I just nodded and folded it back into her suitcase. She went on curling her hair, unfazed. "Still can't believe you guys have to fly out on a Thursday for a corporate retreat," I said, keeping my tone light. She smiled into the mirror, lips coated in some new gloss. "Well, it's team building. We're doing presentations, outdoor activities, bonding stuff. You know how these things are." I didn't. Rena worked in marketing, and her company wasn't the type to do luxury anything. But I pretended. I always pretended. I waited until she went to shower. That's when I checked her email on our shared tablet. Something I'd never done before. I told myself it was just to calm the storm building in my gut. Instead, it confirmed it. Corbin Lancaster, her ex-fiancé. The one she claimed was barely a footnote in her past. His name was right there on the booking confirmation for a deluxe ocean suite. Sent to her personal inbox 3 days ago. I sat on the edge of the bed, heart pounding so hard it felt like it was trying to climb out of my chest. And still, I didn't say a word. I could have confronted her right then. I could have thrown the tablet at the wall, screamed, demanded answers. Instead, I just watched. Over the next hour, I noticed things that should have been obvious before. The way she double-checked her phone every few minutes. How her nails had been freshly done. How smooth her legs looked. How she barely looked at me unless I asked a question. Rena had been distant for weeks. Smiling, but only with her mouth. Her texts were always face down, her attention always somewhere else. Now I knew where, but I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just told her to have a good trip, helped zip her suitcase, and kissed her cheek before she called her ride. Because I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to give her the drama she was probably bracing for. I was going to wait. And while she packed for a weekend of lies, I started planning the truth. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the garage with a beer in one hand and the glow of a laptop in the other. The Chevelle project in the corner staring back at me like it knew. Like it understood. That's when I remembered Wes. He owed me a favor, a big one. Wes and I go way back. Used to ride together before he got serious about the tech world. Now he runs a private security consulting firm. Mostly installs high-end surveillance systems for rich clients who think their pool boys are stealing wine. I sent a message. Need a quiet setup. Hotel surveillance. No names involved. You in? 10 minutes later, he replied, I'm in. Where and when? I gave him the name of the resort and suite number from the confirmation email I'd found on Rena's tablet. He didn't ask questions. Just sent a thumbs up and said he'd fly out the next morning. By the time Rena texted me a casual, we just landed. The following afternoon, Wes had already called to confirm everything was live. Cameras and audio in the bedroom, lounge area, and even the balcony. All tucked into vents, smoke detectors, and lamp bases. I sat at my shop's front desk and pulled up the live feed on my tablet. I told myself I might not see anything. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe Corbin was just some weird coincidence. But the second she walked into that suite, laughing, flipping her hair, twirling in that damn bikini, I knew. Corbin walked in right behind her, holding a bottle of champagne like he owned the place. He was tall, polished, all teeth. Looked like he walked straight out of a LinkedIn profile. Rena poured 2 glasses and sat on the bed like she belonged there, like it wasn't the first time. I watched in silence as she playfully shoved him away, fake protesting, the way someone does when they want to be talked into it. He kissed her shoulder. She giggled. The robe slid down. Her resistance, if you could call it that, lasted maybe a minute. I paused the feed, closed my eyes, exhaled, and then I pressed record. It wasn't about hurting her. Not really. It wasn't even about Corbin. I didn't care about him, never had. What broke me was how easy it came to her. How calculated the lie had been. She packed that red bikini like it was nothing. She looked me in the eye, told me it was a team-building retreat. Said, don't worry. She wanted me not to look too closely, to keep my head down and just believe her. I didn't cry. I didn't punch a wall. I just clicked save and backed the footage up to 3 different drives. Later that night, Wes texted, "You want me to keep monitoring?" I replied, "Yeah, but don't send me anything unless I ask. Just archive it." He sent back a simple got it. Then added, "FYI, Corbin tipped me thinking I was hotel maintenance. Told me he always books the ocean suite for special girls. Your wife isn't the first." I stared at the screen until the message blurred. That was the last time I felt anything about her. After that, I just planned. Cold, methodical, and clear. Like I was building something from scratch. Because in a way I was. I was building the end of us. Piece by piece. I waited until she was mid-massage at the resort to start. The bank app was already open on my laptop. Our art investment account, the one Rena insisted we opened 3 years ago after some gallery in Santa Fe convinced her modern sculpture was the next Bitcoin, sat fat with nearly 70 grand. All contributions from me. She liked to say we were building our future together. What she really meant was I was paying for hers. I transferred every cent out of it into a new account in my name only. Then I locked it. Permanently. Not a dollar left for her to touch. Next up, the business. Rena wasn't on my shop's payroll, but over time I'd given her access to the shared card I used for ordering parts. She said it was more efficient that way. Mostly, she used it for sushi and makeup. I called the bank and had the card frozen, then reissued under a new number. Killed her online login. Logged out of everything she'd ever touched. Then I called my accountant. "Need to update some access privileges," I said. "Rena again?" he asked. He didn't even sound surprised. "Yeah. Shut her out of everything. Starting today." By the time her next mimosa landed poolside, she no longer had a single hand on my business or our money. Then I canceled every credit card in her name. The Black Amex? Gone. The joint Visa she used to buy flights and boutique crap? Closed. She'd find out soon enough, probably right when she tried to buy overpriced spa products on the way back to the suite. I booked a cabin up in the Rockies, nothing fancy. Just a quiet, remote spot with no cell service and no reason to explain myself to anyone. I packed a duffel bag with some clothes, a bottle of bourbon, and a printed copy of every document I'd pulled from our shared accounts. And I left. Left the house, left the dog with my neighbor, left behind the version of me that used to wait for permission to be angry. Up in the cabin, there was no TV, no phone, no news from the outside world unless I chose to connect. I didn't. But people always find a way. About 2 days in, my buddy James texted through on the satellite Wi-Fi I'd left running for emergencies. "Dude, Rena's blowing up the hotel staff." Screaming. Crying. Threw her phone at the concierge. Corbin bailed. No one knows where he went. "You okay?" I didn't answer right away. I walked out onto the porch, looked up at the mountains, and just breathed. She'd spent years building a fantasy world where I was too dumb or too loyal to ever walk away. But now she was stuck in her lie, watching it crumble while I sipped bourbon in the cold and felt nothing but peace. This wasn't revenge. This was justice done slow and clean, the kind that doesn't need fire to leave scars. And the best part? She'd never see it coming. She showed up at the shop 4 days later. I was under a 72 shovelhead, arms coated in grease, when I heard the front door slam. I knew that sound. Rena never closed anything gently. I didn't move at first. Just kept working, wiping my hands off as I rolled out from under the bike. She was standing there in heels that didn't belong anywhere near a garage, sunglasses too big for her face, and her jaw clenched like she'd rehearsed 100 speeches before walking in. "Can we talk?" she asked. I nodded toward the back room. "We are." She followed me in, arms crossed tight over her chest like armor. I sat on the old leather stool I used to keep for customers and waited. "I don't know what you think you saw," she started. "But whatever this is, this silence, you're blowing it out of proportion." I laughed once. Just one dry breath. So we're doing gaslighting now? That's how you're starting. She hesitated, then softened her tone like she was switching strategies. Tyler, I messed up. Okay. I was confused. Corbin and we just talked. Yeah, talked. On top of hotel sheets in a robe I bought you. She flinched just for a second. It didn't mean anything. It meant enough for you to lie straight to my face. She dropped into the chair across from me, tears already forming, like she thought waterworks might buy her time. I was lonely, Tyler. You've been distant, always at the shop. You stopped looking at me like I mattered. I leaned back, arms folded. I stopped looking at you like you mattered the second I realized you were already gone. Months ago, when the texts got secretive, when your smile didn't reach your eyes, when you kept picking fights about towels just to walk out of the room. I tried to talk to you. No, Rena. You tried to lie quieter. And I let you. That's on me. She wiped her eyes, makeup smearing just a little. I made a mistake, but we can fix it. I want to fix it. I stood and grabbed the envelope from the shelf behind me, slid it across the table. She opened it with shaking hands. The divorce papers weren't long. No kids. No shared home. The rest had already been handled while she was off playing house with her ex. She stared at them like they might catch fire. You already filed? She whispered. Signed, notarized, ready to go. Tears hit the floor. You're really just throwing us away? No, I said quietly. You did that the second you packed a red lace bikini to sleep with your ex and called it team building. She looked up at me, cheeks wet, lip trembling. He left me, you know? I didn't flinch. Of course he did. She laughed bitterly, said I was too much drama, that I didn't know what I wanted. I met her eyes. You knew exactly what you wanted. Tension, control, someone to orbit around you and pretend it was gravity. I paused, then said the last line like it had been waiting its turn for weeks. You didn't lose me, Rena. You gambled me. She looked at me like she already knew what was coming. And you lost. After the confrontation, after her tears and silence and one final door swing behind her, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt empty, like everything I'd built or thought I'd built had been quietly rotting for a while, and now all that was left was dust and drywall. So I went back to what I knew. The Chevelle had been sitting in the corner of the garage for over a year. A 67 SS, rust on the doors, frame sagging. I bought it from a widow up in Thornton who said it used to belong to her husband. She cried when I loaded it on the flatbed. It had good bones, just needed time, so I gave it mine. Every morning before the shop opened, I rolled up the door, brewed a strong pot of coffee, and slid under the chassis like it was a ritual. Some people go to therapy. I replaced bushings. I didn't talk to anyone unless I had to. My buddy James dropped by once or twice, brought burritos, asked if I was holding up. I nodded, said yeah, and got back to work. People meant well. They always do. But I didn't need noise. I didn't want pep talks or you'll find someone better. I wanted the silence to stretch wide enough to finally think inside of it. I pulled the engine out myself, cleaned it with my hands. I scraped every layer of grime off the undercarriage until the steel showed through, smooth and patient, like it had been waiting for me all this time. Piece by piece, it came together. So did I. At night, I'd sit on a stool, beer in hand, staring at what I'd done that day. Sometimes just a door panel, sometimes a whole brake system. I stopped counting progress by weeks or parts. I just let the hours pass. Some nights I'd catch myself thinking about her, about Rena. Not the hotel or the lies, not the footage I'd deleted, just her laugh, maybe, before it turned into something performative. The way she used to lean on the counter at the shop and pretend she knew anything about carburetors just so I'd keep talking. But now I saw it clearly. She wasn't evil. She wasn't a villain. She was selfish, ungrounded, hollow in places I kept trying to fill. And you can only patch drywall so many times before the whole wall needs tearing down. By the end of the month, the Chevelle had a new coat of deep black paint, and I had the first full night's sleep I'd had in years. Not because I'd forgiven her, but because I'd finally stopped trying to understand her. The silence that used to feel like punishment, now it felt like peace. I met Elise on a Tuesday. She came in with her dad, Frank, a retired trucker from out in Golden, who'd finally decided to restore his '70 Challenger. He'd heard about my shop from a guy at the VFW and wanted someone who knew how to treat a car with a little damn respect. Elise trailed behind him, holding a clipboard and a travel mug that said "World's Okayest Daughter." She was maybe early 30s, dressed in jeans and a faded CSU hoodie, hair tied up in a messy knot that didn't feel intentional. She didn't say much that first time, just smiled while I and Frank talked about engine mounts and torque specs. But before they left, she handed me a fresh coffee. "You looked like you needed it," she said. "Black, no sugar," figured I'd guess. She got it right. She came with Frank to every check-in after that. Said she was just the chauffeur, but I noticed how she lingered. Asked questions. Listened more than she talked. She never forced a conversation, just leaned on the edge of the workbench like she belonged there. She didn't flirt. She didn't try to impress. She just existed in a way that didn't make noise. One afternoon she asked me what it was like running a shop alone. "I don't mind it," I said. "Silence doesn't ask for anything." She didn't laugh like it was a joke. She just nodded. "That makes sense." I started noticing her eyes after that, soft green but steady. She held eye contact when most people looked away. Like she wasn't afraid of silence either. I didn't ask her out. Not right away. Wasn't even sure I could go down that road again. But I noticed that when she was around, the days didn't feel quite so heavy. My shoulders didn't lock up so tight. A couple weeks after we finished the Challenger's suspension rebuild, Frank swung by to pick up the invoice. Elise wasn't with him. "She's at the bakery down the road," he said. "Keeps asking me if you eat anything besides coffee." That same day, I got a text from James. It was a clip someone had posted online, Rena at some rooftop club, hanging off some finance guy, glassy-eyed, laughing too loud at nothing. I watched it once. No anger. No sadness. Nothing. I locked my phone and looked back at the car I was working on. Elise showed up 10 minutes later with a fresh bag of cinnamon rolls. She didn't say a word. Just handed me one and sat beside me while I kept wrenching in silence. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something stir that wasn't pain. It was a Sunday when I deleted the footage. Not out of mercy. Not to forget. Just because it no longer served a purpose. I sat on the same stool where I'd watched it the first time, back when it hit like a pipe to the ribs. Back when I still flinched every time her name lit up my phone. Now it was just data. Weightless. Pointless. One click. Gone. She didn't deserve to be the last thing taking up space on my hard drive. That same evening, I got her letter. Handwritten of all things. Delivered in a soft white envelope with no return address, like she thought dressing it up in silence would somehow change the story. Inside, her handwriting slanted sharp across the page. No greeting. No pleasantries. Just 10 paragraphs of truth that had come far too late. She admitted to everything. Corbin. The lie about the retreat. Even the fake excuse she gave him when he ghosted her, that I'd been emotionally abusive. That she feared for her safety. Her words, not mine. "I lied to both of you," she wrote. "To protect myself. To make it feel less like a betrayal and more like a choice I had to make. I wanted to feel wanted. I wanted to feel powerful. I didn't know how to sit still with real love." She said Corbin cut her off when he found out the truth. Said he called her a walking red flag. I believe him. She closed the letter with a sentence I'll never forget. "You didn't deserve what I did to you, and I will always carry that weight, even if you never read this." I folded the paper once, then twice, and slid it into an old metal box in the back of my filing cabinet. Not out of nostalgia. Just to mark the end of something. A record for the archive, not the heart. I didn't feel vindicated. Not really. I didn't want revenge anymore. Didn't care who knew the truth. The only person who ever really needed to understand what she'd done was me. And now I did. She tried to rewrite reality. Tried to turn her guilt into my failure. Tried to make herself the victim in a story where she held the knife the whole time. But her letter didn't matter anymore. Not in the way she probably hoped. Because healing isn't about waiting for the apology. It's about reaching the point where you don't need one. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the closed drawer, thinking about how much time I'd wasted trying to get her to be something she'd never been. Honest, loyal, grounded. She was none of those things. But me? I was. And the man I'd become, the one who could read her confession and feel nothing but peace, that was the man she couldn't reach anymore. She'd already lost me. Now, finally, I'd let her go. The shop got busier after everything ended. I never advertised. Never needed to. But somehow word got around. Maybe it was the Chevelle parked out front like a freshly polished badge. Maybe it was that I started smiling again, even if just a little. Elise still came by. At first it was dropping off coffee or checking on her dad's tire pressure. But by now, neither of us pretended. She'd swing in twice a week like clockwork. Sometimes with cinnamon rolls, sometimes with nothing but that quiet steadiness of hers. She never pushed, never filled the silence with small talk. And that's what got to me. One Thursday afternoon, I finally said it. We were standing in the back, watching the Challenger idle after a fuel system tune-up. "You hungry?" I asked, hands in my back pockets. She looked up from her coffee. "Always." I was thinking, there's a steak place up in Evergreen. Quiet. Not a date unless you want it to be. She smiled, slow and warm. "Sounds perfect." We didn't talk about the past that night. Didn't dig into scars or name-drop the people who left them. We talked about travel. About how she wanted to visit Nova Scotia someday. About the '64 Mustang she tried to rebuild with her dad before life got busy. She asked what honesty meant to me. I thought for a second, then said, "It's when someone lets you see the mess, not just the performance." She nodded like she understood completely. When the check came, she didn't reach for it. Just looked at me and said, "Next time, I'm picking the place." And somehow that felt better than any declaration. Back at the shop the next day, I got a message from James. He sent me a link to a local gossip forum. Rena again caught out with another new guy. Some personal trainer this time. Different face, same performance. I didn't open the video. I didn't even feel curious. It hit me then, the kind of clarity you don't notice until the noise is finally gone. This was it. Not the revenge. Not the carefully plotted silence. Not even the letter I locked away in a drawer. Peace. Real peace. Elise walked in a few minutes later, no coffee this time. Just that small, quiet grin. She leaned on the workbench like she belonged there. "Busy day?" she asked. I shook my head. "Nah, just steady." We didn't need to say anything else. Because I finally realized something. The best revenge wasn't torching what broke me. It was building something better in its place. And this was better. It was late, almost midnight, when the voicemail came in. Unknown number. No message preview. I almost deleted it without listening. But something made me press play. Corbin. His voice was quieter than I expected. Less smug. Like someone who'd just walked out of a long storm without an umbrella. "Hey, Tyler. I don't even know why I'm calling, man. I guess I just wanted to say." He paused for a while. I could hear traffic in the background. Faint honk. Then his voice again. "She told me you were dangerous. That you were controlling. That she stayed with you out of fear." Another pause. Then a sharp inhale. "But she lied. I see that now." He cleared his throat, almost embarrassed. "I left her. Not because of you, man. Because she kept changing stories. Kept twisting everything. Made it sound like she was trapped. Like she was the victim of every man she'd ever been with. I believed her at first. God help me, I did." The wind picked up on his end, muffling his voice for a moment. When it cleared, he kept going. "But then I saw it. How she always needed someone to be the bad guy. First it was you. Then me. She told me I was cold. Uncaring. That I didn't love her deep enough. That I was just another disappointment in a long line of men who couldn't give her what she deserved." He laughed, but it wasn't joyful. It was bitter. "I don't know why I'm telling you this. I guess I wanted you to know. You weren't crazy. You weren't the villain." There was a long silence, and then, finally, "I'm sorry." Click. I sat there in the dark, phone resting on the workbench, the Chevelle gleaming behind me under the garage lights. I didn't feel triumphant. There was no rush of satisfaction. No imagined crowd cheering because the truth had finally come out. But something else settled over me. Validation. I hadn't needed it, not anymore. But hearing it from the one person she tried to rebuild her story with, that mattered. Because she hadn't just betrayed me. She tried to rewrite reality. Tried to cast me as the reason her life had turned toxic. The villain in her carefully staged fall. But even the next guy saw through the act. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Not because Corbin apologized, but because I knew, deep down without a doubt, I had been right all along. Months later, Elise and I took a road trip to Glacier National Park. No reservations, no agenda, just the two of us, a packed cooler, and a borrowed Jeep with too many miles on it. I hadn't taken a real vacation in years, and she hadn't seen Montana since she was a teenager. It felt like the right kind of empty, no noise, no expectations, just sky and road and silence. We stopped at gas stations that sold jerky in mason jars and played cards on the hood at campgrounds that smelled like pine. We didn't post anything. We didn't document the trip like proof we existed. We just were. By the third day, we reached the edge of the park. It was sunset when we hiked up to a ridge overlooking the glacier basin. The sky was a soft burn of orange and lavender. Everything was so quiet it felt sacred. We sat by the fire later that night, wrapped in flannel, sipping lukewarm coffee from tin mugs. Elise stared at the flames for a long time before finally asking, "What would you tell him?" I looked at her. "The man you used to be," she said. "If you could go back, what would you say to him?" I didn't answer right away. I poked the fire with a stick, watching a small log collapse into red-hot embers. Then I leaned back, folded my arms, and let the answer come. I'd tell him not to confuse chaos with passion. Elise looked at me, waiting. I'd tell him that someone treating you like an option isn't romantic. That red flags don't turn green just because you give them more time. I'd tell him to walk away the first time his gut told him something wasn't right, before he started explaining betrayal to himself like it was just misunderstanding. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. That's what I loved about her. She wasn't a fixer. She didn't try to stitch wounds that were already scarred over. She just listened. We sat there for a long time. No music. No voices. Just the pop of wood and the low hum of wind through the trees. And I realized something. This quiet, steady presence beside me was the thing I'd been searching for all along. Not fire. Not sparks. Just warmth that didn't burn. Rena used to say love was messy. That if it didn't leave bruises, it wasn't real. She confused drama for depth, manipulation for connection. And I let her. I believed the lie because it came with just enough affection to keep me tethered. But this wasn't a tether. This was a choice. Easy. Clear. Soft in a way I didn't know I needed. Later that night, I crawled into the tent next to Elise. She was already half asleep, breathing slow, one hand tucked under her chin. I watched her for a moment, the moonlight soft against her skin. She didn't know what she had saved me from. She probably never would. And that was fine. I didn't need fireworks. I didn't need closure speeches or Facebook rants or public validation. I had peace. And that was the one thing revenge could never give me. I closed my eyes and let go of everything else.